What's up, guys? Fantasy Joe back here with some fantasy football content for that 2022 Dynasty. Wanted to bring you guys some more content. I'm back now, so I'm going to be uploading more Dynasty stuff throughout these next upcoming weeks. Hopefully, soon, some of the mock draft apps that let you mock draft will update their rankings already into 2022. Honestly, I don't know what makes people wait so long. Um, Even if they're not, it's just let people do what they want to do, which is draft. But anyway, if you guys are new to the channel, please hit that like button, hit that sub button down below. Stick around for tons of content coming your way. Redraft, 2QB. I will be back with the two quarterback mock drafts. Those were a big hit last year. Um, yeah, basically everything we brought you last year just bigger and better than ever. Probably gonna be switching up the format too on some videos. Just getting into some housekeeping stuff before we hop into the video this time, guys, since it's a new year. Um, but yeah, like I said, probably new format. Probably not going to be as many PowerPoints. Hopefully, going to be transitioning to more of a just recording me and talking and doing that stuff. But yeah, we'll get some memes in there for sure. But yeah, these are dynasty players you should be buying. And listen to what I say when I talk about the players. It don't go trade for some guy and you have an awful roster and you're like, I traded for player X and I'm not winning. And it's like, no, duh, dude. You should have been the guy selling these players. So know where your team's at. These are guys, if you're close to winning a championship or you're ready to compete, these are guys that if you're a position away, go out, throw a trade offer on one of these guys, throw out some of that rookie draft capital, see if you can pull a deal. So yeah, let's hop into it. First up, quarterback Russell Wilson. This is probably one of my favorite buy lows of the entire fantasy offseason. Russ, so he played poorly when he came back from his injuries, but he came back very quickly from that middle finger, that ligament break in his middle finger. We all saw that the video when he injured it. Um, yeah, and he just really wasn't the same touch. But we've seen him just be surgeon like before in the past with his accuracy, his decision making, all that good stuff. I really do think he is going to be back and better than ever next year. I don't know if better than ever, but I think he still has a lot of great seasons left in him. In Dynasty, I'm always looking at the next 2 to 3 seasons. And I think Russ is going to be great for all those seasons that you can go out and buy him on a discount. Some people will be like, oh, is he coming down or not? And let me lay out some of the reasons why. So, yeah, obviously he played poorly with that injury last year. Coming off quarterback 17 in 2021, but let's look back in the past a little bit. 2020, he was quarterback 6. 2019, he was quarterback 4 when he didn't have to deal with those injuries, and he's historically been extremely durable. So I don't, anybody can get hurt, but that's more of a freak injury, and I think he's going to play a lot of games moving forward. Great weapons with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, obviously. Coming off 4 straight seasons before 2021 of 30-plus passing touchdown seasons, which is absolutely phenomenal, especially when you consider the rushing upside that Russ brings you. Last year, he only had 183 rushing yards, which definitely contributed to his low fantasy finish, as well as missing games and playing poorly, throwing the ball as well. But look at 2020. Compare that to over 500 yards a year before. I'm not saying he's going to roll out there and rush for 500 yards every year like he used to, but I still think 300 rushing yards is well within the range for Russ, nearly double what he did last year. I just think there's so much great trade potential for him right now to go out there and get him in his league. And even if he is traded, like let's say the Seahawks trade him, there's been rumors of this happening to maybe the New York Giants, Carolina Panthers, Saints, somewhere like that. All those spots Russell will be all right in. It might not be as good, but this offensive line, their left tackle Dwayne Brown's a free agent this year, and they allowed a 37% pressure rate. So Russ is playing behind one of the worst offensive lines in football as it is. He could go somewhere, and that's only going to. I don't see the offensive line getting worse at his next location. Honestly, it's just not super likely. It could happen, but the weapons might be slightly worse. But Russ will find a way to get it done. He did. He threw those touchdown seasons. He had 2 of those. DK has only been there for 3 seasons now. 2 seasons now, actually, I think. 2 or 3. Actually, I think he has been there for 3 seasons. But either way, Russ was throwing 30 touchdowns before DK got there. He can do it again. Go out there and trade for Russ if you're a quarterback away and you have a chance to win. I think you get him for a young quarterback who doesn't have as much potential and a second-round rookie pick. I think you could get that done. I'm trying to think of a quarterback that would be a good example of somebody I could throw out there that Yeah, but I think, just take a mid-range back-end QB1 or a, QB 15, that area. I would take one of those guys and go offer him to somebody if they're got a bad team or something like that. They're out of it. And a second round rookie pick, even a back-end first round rookie pick if you're in that 8 to 12 pick range. Um, as far as rookie picks go this year, I do think if you're looking to add a young wide receiver, I think this is the year to have one of those first round rookie picks. Otherwise, I would be willing to move them if you're looking for a stud running back or something like that is actually you really need. I wouldn't be afraid to trade them. I think though you'll be able to, I think Jamison Williams, Treylon Burks, um, who am I forgetting? Drake London. Like there's gonna be a bunch of big time Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. Um, those are just off the top of my head 5 stud receivers in this year's draft class that I think are gonna be great rookie picks coming up. Obviously, there'll be videos on that as we get closer to this season too. But just wanted to let you guys know strategically what you should be thinking about heading into next season. Okay, let's head into our next player now. This one might come as a bit of a surprise, but he's also one of my favorite players to buy low this offseason. Running back for the Carolina Panthers, Christian McCaffrey. Now, he struggled with injury these last 2 seasons, there's no doubt about it. But the first 3 seasons that he played for his career, he played all 16 games. He showed durability before. He doesn't have a ton of workload on his body. Sure, he's gotten a lot of touches in some years, but he hasn't been in the league that long. And he's bulked up a little bit, which I do think, could it contribute to him getting hurt? I think that's all a little bit overfetched. I think guys just get hurt taking a lot of hits, and it could happen to anybody any given year. But let's look at some of his stats from some of his previous years and talk about why I think he's worth trading for. So in 2019, which is his last full healthy season, he averaged 7.7 points per game higher than the RB2 did that year. 7.7 points per game higher than the RB2. He finished as RB1 that season. So he is at a level of domination that we just really haven't seen in a long time in fantasy football. Look at 2020 last year. He was the number 1 running back in points per game, averaging 27.3 points per game. When he's on the field, he just dominates. And yes, the Carolina Panthers offensive line has gotten worse. They don't have a stud quarterback, although if you look back at those years where he was, going off, they didn't have a stud quarterback back then either. They didn't have a great offensive line. They had a solid one. And I think they will use some of that draft capital, some of that free agency to address that offensive line. There's no getting around how poorly they played this year. But I think, you go out, you do that, you bring in just any quarterback, even if it's Sam Darnold next year, he'll be able to be productive with Christian McCaffrey back there if that offensive line improves a little bit. And if he can stay healthy, let's just say he stays healthy. If you acquire him this offseason for the price you can get him and he hits, you will win your league most likely. There's not many players that you can say that for, but you can say that for Christian McCaffrey, and that's why he's a buy low in Dynasty. If you are a team that needs a running back, say you've got a solid RB2 or something, and you've got the means to go out and trade for one of these guys, I'd be willing to trade a pretty good player for Christian McCaffrey still. Because like I said, I think 2 to 3 seasons of Christian McCaffrey could be really good. And I think there's a likelihood that he could age out in a role where he's still extremely relevant for fantasy football, where he starts getting less and less first and second down carries, but transitions more to a third down back role, whether that's even Carolina or somewhere else. I could see him, playing and being productive until he's 32 because of his receiving ability. If he can, I just think there's a different way for him to age in this role where he can stay fantasy relevant even after he's not a dominant workhorse. He can transition to more into an RB2 role later in his career, and you can trade for him now and get maybe a few Marshall Faulk LT-esque years left in him before, he goes. So I would be trading for Christian McCaffrey right now. I just think that, you could go out and this is the only time basically in his careers in the last several years that you would be able to go out and acquire a back like Christian McCaffrey. So yeah, I think he's definitely worth out there throwing some offers around. I'm trying to think of some backs that I would be willing to offer. If I could do, a J.K. Dobbins and a piece, I would be willing to do something like that. I think there's, trades out there that could be made for him. Yeah, definitely. If I could go Zeke and a young wide receiver that's talented, Zeke and a high rookie pick, I would do that. Trade him and Treylon Burks, or Jamison Williams for Christian McCaffrey. I love both those receivers, but that's a deal that I would be willing to do. Next up, another running back. We got Travis Etienne. So the Robinson injury definitely opens the door for him. James Robinson tore his Achilles on December 26th. I think this combined with the draft capital of Travis Etienne being a first round pick, 25th overall, and sure, the coaching staff is gone that drafted him there already, but he's still a super talented football player. He has a connection with Trevor Lawrence, which I think is just going to be absolutely huge. Trevor's going to use him as that safety blanket, get those checkdowns. He had 102 receptions in college, and who was throwing in the ball? Trevor Lawrence. Um, I think honestly people keep downplaying his skills or like his workload and all that stuff. And yeah, he might not be a 250 carry back every year, but I think that isn't like I think that is his upper echelon of carries. Like I think he could get somewhere close to that. And I think he's gonna get close to 200 as it is, and he's just dynamic. Coming out of college, he reminded me of Dalvin Cook, but a little bit more juiced in the tank, honestly. Um, yeah, I'm super excited about ETN this upcoming season. Like I said, he's a receiving threat. He had every ACC record, yards from scrimmage. He had led the all-time leader in the ACC in rushing, yards from scrimmage, and touchdowns. 77 touchdowns in his career in college. He has a nose for the end zone. Like I said, I think this James Robinson injury just opens the door for him to become the starter, become a stud. And we saw Cam Akers bounce back from that Achilles injury, which is extremely impressive. Emmanuel Sanders did it in recent years. Um, we'll have to see if James Robinson can do it. He's a little bit of a different body type than those guys, but a little bit bigger. But I think that he could return. I just think give Etienne that foot in the door, and he can jump up to a hot start and kind of take that job, and then Robinson will be introduced more in a first and second down role and limited usage, or they maybe they trade him because they have so much invested in Etienne. Remains to be seen, but I think Etienne's a great buy low coming off that Liz Frank injury. You can go out and acquire him, and he's a guy you could maybe acquire for an RB2 price that could be an RB1 for you for years to come. He's just extremely athletic. Um, you know, has that Alvin Kamara like blow up ability to me. Obviously, he's on a worse offense and things like that, but teams can improve. They could come out and draft Evan Neal, number one overall, get a stud left tackle to help Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. That's very, very possible, and I think you could acquire him. He's going fourth round range right now in redraft leagues. He's not rated super highly as a dynasty running back right now. Yeah, I would go out and try to acquire Travis Etienne. I think he's another guy you could throw an RB2 at and maybe just swap him straight up. I think you could, I'm trying to think of a back. DeAndre Swift's obviously super valuable in dynasty leagues. I think you could trade, DeAndre Swift and get Etienne and maybe a piece back if you were looking for a 2-for-1 on your end. Moving on to our next player, it's wide receiver A.J. Brown. The reason for buying A.J. Brown is quite simple. He's coming off his worst season this year, wide receiver 32, and he's headed into his age 25 season. He's still very young. Targets are on the rise as well. He had 105 targets this last year in 13 games, 106 the year before in 14 games. And that's with a bunch of those games that he missed due to partial games because of injuries and things like that. But let's look. So 2020, he finishes the wide receiver 11 and averaged 15.2 points per game. This last year, as I said, 2021, finishes wide receiver 32, average 11.5 points per game, though. Not super far off, especially when you consider how poorly Tannehill performed compared to previous seasons. I believe he threw only 21 touchdowns, a lot of interceptions. I think with the way the offense is formulated now, kind of, A.J. Brown is the one. He's going to get more targets, and he's a guy who, if he gets 130 targets, he was wide receiver 11 on 106 targets. I do think the targets are coming. I just think he needs to stay healthy, and he could be, in for one of those absolute blow-up seasons, go for 1,300 plus yards. I mean, he's a guy, if he stays healthy and the targets come, he could get 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns. Like, he is that good. The talent's that good. Watch him play. It's just amazing to watch. And, yeah, I just think he's a guy you could go in and acquire at this point of time, and you got a chance. I would go out. I'm thinking of, if you could offer DJ Moore and a first round rookie pick, I think you could do that and get AJ Brown, maybe even less, something around that range. I just think you can get him for a pretty good deal right now, and he could be a beast that could help your fantasy team for years to come. If you guys have made it to this point in the video, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to stick around. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below. I'll respond as always. This has been Fantasy Joe. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.